books, right? Hello, so I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different than I have in the past. I wanted to talk about books and reading because that is a huge part of my life. I love books. They transport you to different worlds. You get to learn so many different perspectives. I always have a Goodreads reading goal. This year I set it at 100 and I've already kind of surpassed that, and it's only halfway through the year. That is mostly due to the fact that I listen to 90% of my books I listen to on audiobook. Just because I like to be able to multitask and do tons of different stuff at the same time, and having an audiobook playing is one of the best things in my opinion as entertainment to kind of stimulate your brain while you're doing other tasks. And I just thought that since it's about mid-year right now, I'd kind of just highlight the books that I've rated 5 stars so far. So what I'm going to do is kind of give the synopsis of the book, then I'm going to give a spoiler-free kind of review of what I thought and what I enjoyed about those books. I'll keep it really vague just in case it does intrigue you and you want to go look at these books for yourself. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the first book. If you notice that I keep glancing down a lot, I've got notes down here just to help me keep my thoughts straight, so I really sell these books to you guys because they truly are fantastic. So the first book I'm going to talk about that I absolutely loved is called Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. Goodreads describes it as, "Meet Dodger, skilled with words, languages come easy to him. He instinctively understands how the world works through the power of story. Meet Dodger, his twin. Numbers are her world, her obsession, her everything. All she understands, she does so through the power of math. Roger and Dodger aren't exactly human, though they don't realize it. They aren't exactly gods either, not entirely, not yet. Meet Reed, skilled in the alchemical arts like his progenitor before him. Reed created Dodger and her brother. He's not their father, not quite, but he has a plan to raise the twins to highest power, to ascend with them and claim their authority as his own. Godhood is attainable, but pray it isn't attained." So this is kind of speculative, magical, realism, fiction. It's really, really interesting. I don't think I've ever read anything quite like it. Seanan McGuire is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. She has a whole series of these novellas as well that kind of have that same magical realism, otherworldly element to them that just makes them so interesting. Roger and Dodger are two of my new favorite fictional characters. They're fantastic. The story itself is set in the world, and it should feel familiar to the audience because it is just like Earth as is, but there's also these new imaginative and otherworldly aspects built on top of the world that we already know. There is so much to learn and digest throughout the story, but it's presented in a way that feels so accessible and you don't feel blindsided by anything. It's well thought out, super well paced. I didn't want it to end. I have yet to read a book I dislike from Seanan McGuire, so I think it's pretty much a home run, regardless of what title you pick up from her. My next one is one that I think a lot of people do know, and it's mostly that I've seen tons of adaptations of it, but I've never actually read the story itself, so I decided to pick up And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. The audiobook I listened to was a full cast. It was fantastic. I don't really feel like I need to give too much context for it because I feel like everybody knows, it's a closed door mystery. They're stuck on an island, people start dying, and you're trying to figure out who did it, what's the connection between all these people, what brought them there, and it's just an amazing and well-crafted story. But Agatha Christie is just phenomenal in general. I've never disliked one of her stories. That was definitely a good one to pick up, especially if you've seen movie or TV show adaptations of it. It's really cool to see the source material and kind of compare them and see what was exactly replicated in those stories and what kind of things they deviated from. I always find that really fun to get to experience and see, so definitely read And Then There Were None. The next book I rated 5 stars is The Night Shift by Alex Finley, and the synopsis is, "It's New Year's Eve 1999. Y2K is expected to end in chaos, planes falling from the skies, elevators plunging to Earth, world markets collapsing. A digital apocalypse. None of that happens, but at a Blockbuster Video in Linden, New Jersey, 4 teenage girls working the night shift are attacked. Only one survives. Police quickly identify a suspect who flees and is never seen again. 15 years later, in the same town, 4 teenage employees working at an ice cream store are attacked, and again, only one makes it out alive. Both surviving victims recall the killer speaking only a few final words. "Good night, pretty girl." In the aftermath, 3 lives intersect: the survivor of the Blockbuster massacre who's forced to relive her tragedy, the brother of the original suspect who's convinced the police have it wrong, and the FBI agent who's determined to solve both cases. On a collision course toward the truth, all 3 lives will forever be changed, and not everyone will make it out alive. So it sounds pretty wild, and it is wild, but I could not put the book down. Like, I really couldn't. The 3 perspectives were all absolutely fantastic. They were deeply layered, complex, and they kept you on the edge of your seat. The writing was sharp and concise, and it moved quick, and it kept you just engaged and ready to see what would happen next. There were so many twists that I didn't see coming, which for the amount of mystery and thrillers I read is really something special. Those twists, they hit hard. Like, they showed up and you were just like blown backwards. The conclusion and final reveal is a nail biter. Like, you just don't know what's gonna go on. It has one of the best climaxes and conclusions I've read in a thriller lately, and it was just phenomenal. It blew me away. So yeah, definitely check out The Night Shift. The next book is kind of more of a collection, and I actually have the physical copy. It is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And this is just beautiful illustrations and little poem type things that just are so heartwarming. It really makes you realize human connection and appreciate those that you hold dear. So it's just one of the most uplifting and sweet little books, and you can just open it up to any page and get a little dose of happiness for your day. So I think this is definitely an amazing book to have on your shelf. The drawings are beautiful, the writing is beautiful, and just like the sentiment in everything as a whole just makes you feel like a little warm hug. Next, I have another romance called Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This one is One Summer, Two Rivals, a plot twist they didn't see coming. Nora Stevens' life is books. She reads them all, and she's not that type of heroine. Not the plucky one, not the laid-back dream girl, and especially not the sweetheart. In fact, the only people Nora is a heroine for are her clients, for whom she lands enormous deals as a cutthroat literary agent, and her beloved little sister Libby. Which is why she agrees to go to Sunshine Falls, North Carolina for the month of August, when Libby begs her for a sister's trip away, with visions of small-town transformation for Nora, who she's convinced needs to become the heroine in her own story. But instead of picnics and meadows or run-ins with handsome country doctors, Nora keeps bumping into Charlie Lastra, a bookish, brooding editor from back in the city. It would be a meet-cute if not for the fact that they've met many times and it's never been cute. If Nora knows she's not an ideal heroine, Charlie knows he's nobody's hero. But as they are thrown together again and again in a series of coincidences no editor worth their salt would allow, what they discover might just unravel the carefully crafted stories they've written about themselves. So this was literally so sweet. The writing feels so genuine, and it makes the interactions between the characters feel so authentic. Emily Henry does enemies to lovers so well. It took me by surprise because enemies to lovers is not typically a romance trope I enjoy. The banter and conversations between the 2 main characters was really fantastic. It was kind of refreshing, and I loved that even though there were some serious topics thrown in there, overall the vibe of the story was really lighthearted. The inclusion of having like really amazing family dynamics and relationships was such a bonus. Exploring the main character's relationship with her sister was such a nice addition. The ending of the story had my heart absolutely soaring. It was definitely a book that put a smile on my face, and I was very pleased with how everything wrapped up. And then the last book on my 5-star list is called Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This is a novel tracing a widow's unlikely connection with a giant Pacific octopus. Okay, so after Tova Sullivan's husband died, she began working the night shift at the Sowell Bay Aquarium, mopping floors and tidying up. Keeping busy has always helped her cope, which she's been doing since her 18-year-old son Eric mysteriously vanished on a boat in Puget Sound over 30 years ago. Tova became acquainted with curmudgeonly Marcellus, a giant Pacific octopus living at the aquarium. Marcellus knows more than anyone can imagine, but wouldn't dream of lifting one of his 8 arms for his human captors, until he forms a remarkable friendship with Tova. Ever the detective, Marcellus deduces what happened the night Tova's son disappeared, and now Marcellus must use every trick his old invertebrate body can muster to unearth the truth to her before it's too late. So that's pretty crazy, right? You hear octopus, you're like, how is that gonna work? Well, this was such a heartwarming and wholesome story. I never thought that I would love an octopus narrator so much, but there are a few chapters peppered in there from the octopus's perspective, octopi's perspective, and it was just so fun. The quirkiness, the amazing characters, and the engaging writing really pulled me into the story. The relationships were all so wonderful, and to see them grow and develop across the plot was so special. There were so many unexpected layers to the story, and its ability to explore loss, grief, friendship, trust, unexpected connections, and having empathy for one another made for such a truly fantastic reading experience. It's one of my favorites from the year so far. It was totally unexpected. I just was perplexed by the synopsis myself, so I was interested to give it a shot, and I'm so happy that I did, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. Yeah, those are all the 5-star books that I've read so far this year. Those are all personal opinions. If you disagree, agree. If you are intrigued to pick up any of these books, let me know in the comments. I love to talk about books. They're one of my favorite things. Hence why I read so many. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!